Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the untamed world of modern endpoint managed with Citrix XenMobile. And what we're gonna discuss this recording is how to enroll or onboard a Windows 10 endpoint with a Azure Active Directory identity or user. So from a perspective, what you need for requirements on the Citrix side is, of course, you need an XenMobile service subscription. You need to have your Citrix Cloud Connector configured, so the LDAP connection between the XenMobile service and your on-prem Active Directory is there. You need to configure the Azure Active Directory as your EDP in XenMobile service. You need to configure your terms and conditions in XenMobile service, and I will show you why later on. I run into it on the configuration of this demo, and it was not mentioned anywhere in documentations. And to make a good separation of which users are able to enroll with the identity, Azure Active Directory identity, you need to create some Active Directory security or distribution groups. That's up to you, depending on how you're going to leverage this functionality. But in this scenario, I chose to just allow one user to use Azure Active Directory. On the Microsoft side, you need the Azure Active Directory Premium license. You need to configure your Azure AD Active Directory Connect to sync your local accounts and groups into Azure Active Directory. You need to configure a custom domain, and you need to configure an on-premise MDM application in your Azure. So let's first have a look at Azure Active Directory, where you configure these settings. So you log into your Azure portal, and of course you have your premium license there, and then you go to your Azure Active Directory. So basically you need to have your Azure Active Directory Connect into place, and we'll check that later on my server where Azure Active Directory Connect is running. You need your custom domain name verified and as primary there. So let's switch back for a second to my domain controller. This is my domain controller, and you see I have a distribution group named use case Win10 XMS _ Azure Active Directory. And I also have a user that's called CTX Win10 AAD. And you'll see that that user is a member of that group. And I will show you later on why I did that. So while we're here, we can also check the server where I installed the Azure Connect service or application. Or let me log in. Here is Azure AD Connect. Well, the schedule is suspended because I started this application. I just want to view the current config, just to give you an idea. Basically, I configure it to sync all users and all groups within the entire domain based on user principal name. And you see all is there. So we can close it, and we can go back to the Azure Active Directory portal. So when I look at the users, I should see my user here. Let's scroll down a bit. So here's the user. And you see it's synced. And you will see it's member of the groups in my local directory, the distribution group and the security group for Azure Active Directory. So if I go back to the groups, you will see that also distribution group, Windows 10 XMS Azure Active Directory is there. So I also have these configured in my XenMobile server as delivery group. So these are the basic setups you need from a Citrix and a Microsoft perspective. So then we get started with the integration with Azure Active Directory. So you click the mobility tab in Azure Active Directory and add application, and you choose for an on-premise MDM application. So I already did that, so let's see what I configured here. As you can see, you have the user scope. It can be set to none, some and all, and this is the reason why I created a separate user and delivery group in my local Active Directory domain, so I can make that separation. Then we come directly to the terms of use. So this is not the terms of use of Azure itself, but it's a term of use of XenMobile, and you can see that because the full qualified domain name, the instance name, and you see the term of use there. So if you don't configure this and you go to enrollment, then the machine will pop up an error message that it cannot find the server. So what you have to do in XenMobile, go to your device policies and make sure that you have the terms and conditions configured. Just upload a text file with your end user terms in it and an image if you want to. That's it. So Azure Active Directory can resolve that. The discovery URL is the default one on port 8443, so nothing special there. Then you need to do the more advanced settings. So these settings are mostly set on the Properties tab. Just give it a name you want. That's not important. What is important is that this app ID URL. So give it a name, copy it in Notepad or something, just to keep it safe. We need it later. Then you can upload your own logo if you want. That's not a requirement, but you can do that. And then there comes a thing that you need to be very careful with. On the API access tab, you have keys. So we need to generate a key that we later on fill in the XenMobile configuration of the Azure IDP. And the thing is that if you create a key here and you save it and you go out of the tab here, that you cannot get the value back. So it's always hidden. The only option you have is to delete it. So as soon as you create this key, copy and paste it into the same node that you have copied in the application. What is it? The app ID. And we need it later on. So we have set up all the stuff here already. So we can go to the XenMobile server to get the configuration up and going. So for that you need to go into your configurations tab, your settings tab, go to identity provider, and as you can see I already have the thing set up here. So you just need to click the add to create a new IDP configuration. So let's select this one and choose edit. Just give it a name. Make sure it is on Azure Active Directory as IDP, and then comes the tenant ID. So I was a little bit searching where it is, but the most easy way to find it is go to your Azure Active Directory, to your root, like in here, choose your properties, Some documentation says you can find it in the URL, but basically this is the easy way to find it. Copy and paste that into the same notepad you have. Paste it in here, and then all these fields will be auto-populated, so you haven't to do anything there. Just click next, and we go to the client type, the Windows 10 MDM. So here you type in the app ID URI, and as you can see, on the properties here, app ID URI is in here, the client ID. So that's a thing you need to take a note from, because here it says client ID. You can see it ends with 2999, but in the Azure MDM configuration it's called the application ID. So there's a mismatch in naming convention. So be aware that you copy this one and not the object ID. Then here, of course, here is the key that is only visible once. So you can copy that from your node also. Make sure to keep it safe, otherwise you have to create a new key. And just click next. Then the user identity type, user principal name, as you have seen in my Azure AD Connect, it says user principal name. So I chose user principal name here also. Also my Netscaler gateway is also configured for UPN, and my user's email address is the same as the UPN, so the user experience is there better. Basically that's all you need to set up. Maybe it takes some time, a few minutes to work, but in my case it worked directly. So let's go to the demo machine. Let's undock it for a second. So that's it. So I have a Windows 10 demo machine that's running with a local account, and I have a password for it. So I log in, and in this scenario the user already has the endpoint, has control of the endpoint. The endpoint is not pre-provisioned with something like autopilot or something like that. So what we need to do there to make the user onboard into Azure Active Directory is to make them go to the account sections in there, and then access work and account, and basically just click connect here, and then they can log in with their UPN Windows 10 AAD at quicksoft.nl. That's the username. So I just click next. Then it asks for my passwords, and it checks later on for my connection with Azure Active Directory. So I should get a pop-up for the terms and conditions. And when that's figured, here it is. You see the XenMobile logo, the terms of use. I accept it. And when that accept, the device is registered, and the policies that are set by the company are applied. And these are the policies that you set in XenMobile. So this is a new thing in Windows. So Microsoft will send you a verification code. It already knows my phone number, so I just received a text message with a code. So it's 312921, and it will verify. And then another thing that's mandatory is, let's clear all the notifications, is that you set a PIN. So I set a pin and it says almost done. We have added your account. Then it will ask you for your local password. And you'll see the workplace or school account is now in this screen. So if we go to information, you will see that it's also automatically enrolled into XenMobile. And additional to that, you will see which policies and applications are pushed and managed by XenMobile. In this case, we have the browser and some application management stuff in there. So let me see. So the start page is changed to Google. That's what I did in the policy. We come back to that on a later recording. So let's go back to Azure Active Directory and see if the device is enrolled and is visible in the console. So I set the user, and the user is Citrix W1080, and then you'll see that I'm signed in here. Cool. And if it's correct on the devices, it would show me now my desktop. So success, it all works, enrolled, and that's it basically. So later on I will try to do a recording where the onboarding is an out-of-the-box experience with Microsoft Autopilot. But for now, this is it. Just another comment on the reference links. I will post them in the comments of the recording, but also take a note and have a look at our blog series my colleague Matthew Brooks and I are doing on modern endpoint management with Citrix XenMobile. Thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.